Hey everyone, welcome to the LAB studio, being brought to you this week from the All About Law virtual law fair, which I am super excited about because I've been talking about this law fair for absolutely ages, and hopefully you've all watched my YouTube video on how to prepare for it and how to get the most out of the week. If not, it's still linked on my YouTube channel, so make sure you check it out. Some of you I definitely know already, so I'm not going to bore you for too long with my backstory and the details about who I am, but just briefly for anybody who I don't already know, I'm Chrissie Wolfe. I am a solicitor at Irwin Mitchell, where I have been qualified for 5 years now, and I also did my training contract there. I practice in an area called international serious injury, which means that I represent people who have been catastrophically injured abroad. My journey into law wasn't straightforward. I didn't get the best A levels in the world, and as a result I really struggled to get a training contract and ultimately into the profession. So once I was qualified, I wanted to try and help other people who were struggling to get into the profession to achieve their legal dreams like I did. So I started up a YouTube channel called Law and Broader back in 2017, offering tips and advice to those of you who were trying to break into the profession. I still do that, and now it's morphed into a number of different activities, including TikTok, Instagram, public speaking, events, pretty much anything that you can think of. It started off as an online mentoring service, and now it's an all-round support service for the likes of you guys who are all trying to break into the profession. So all my social media links are on screen right now. So if you're looking for additional support and just tips as to what's going on in the profession at the moment and how you can best break into it, then please do follow me on all those platforms. So today I'm going to be talking to you about personal branding and why it's so important, because personal branding was not something that I really knew anything about when I started my YouTube channel back in 2017. I didn't have the idea of creating a personal brand. I just wanted to find a way of reaching other law students who were struggling to break into the profession like I was. But over recent months, I am repeatedly asked to talk about building a personal brand and how I built my personal brand. And I never really thought about it until recently, because I never thought of it as a personal brand. It's something that just kind of happened accidentally over the years that I was creating content for social media and other online platforms. But now that I've actually spent a great deal of time thinking about it and distilling my thoughts on personal branding, I've put together a video that will hopefully help you understand a little bit more about it, what the benefits are, and how you can go about building yours. So what is a personal brand? Well, I like to think of a personal brand as your unique selling point, your USP, how other people would describe you when they're talking about you to someone else. So for example, if two people were talking and one person said, "Hey, do you know Chrissie Wolfe?" and the other one said, "Yeah, isn't she the da-da-da-da-da-da?" That is your personal brand. It's how people would describe you. It's what you're known for. And that's what you want to be thinking about when you start building your personal brand. So why would you want to build a personal brand? Well, first of all, it's a lot of fun. I had so much fun creating content and experimenting with different platforms and different ideas and seeing how my audience engaged with that content. It was also really good for soul searching. It's a really good way of finding out your identity and what you really care about and what your passions are, because the more you start thinking about how you want to be known and how you want people to think of you, the better you become as a person and the more passionate you become. So it's a great way of finding out what really drives you deep down. Looking ahead to the future, it can also be a really great marketing tool for whatever industry you want to go in, whether you're thinking about launching your own business at some point or working for another company. Having a personal brand is a great way to build an audience who can ultimately become your client base or your customer base in the future. So how do you create a personal brand? Well, the one thing that I want to hit home to you is that this is not rocket science. It does not have to be a brand new, groundbreaking idea that no one has ever done before. It just has to be authentic. It has to be 100% genuine, authentic you and come from your own passions. That's how you're going to engage your audience and ensure that your ideas really resonate with them and you build a good connection. Anyone can see when you have a genuine passion about something and they can't help but share that passion with you, and it creates so much excitement and enjoyment when you watch somebody who is really passionate about what they do. So the first thing is to make sure it's authentic. You're not taking someone else's passion, or you're not trying to build something that you think someone else will be impressed by. It's all about you and the message that you want to get across. It's also important to be consistent with your brand message. So in whatever social media posts you're doing, or interviews you're doing, or online content you're producing, it's really important that you keep sending that consistent message, and that's how you will start to build an audience, because people know what they're getting, they know what your message is, and they sign up for that message. So it's important that you stay true to your roots in all aspects of building your personal brand. It's also really important to create a feeling of positivity with your personal brand. And that's not to say that you need only talk about positive things. You can absolutely talk about struggles and difficulties that you faced, but talk about how you overcame those difficulties, tips for other people who might be facing those same difficulties, and always leave people feeling positive, feeling optimistic about the future with the posts that you're making and with the content that you're creating. That's why people come back for more. They come back for more of things that they enjoy. So make sure it's always an enjoyable experience engaging with your personal brand. So how can creating a personal brand help you? Well, here are some ways that it's helped me. First of all, I really enjoyed it. It's been such a positive addition to my daily life since I launched my YouTube channel back in 2017. It's given me incredible drive and optimism and positivity and a real desire to keep creating and to keep engaging with my audience. I've also met some incredible people through YouTube interviews, through events, through public speaking, through LinkedIn, through other social media platforms, which have had a really, really positive effect on my life. I've met some amazing people who I never would have met if I hadn't started my own personal brand. So it's massively enriched my life in that way as well. I alluded to this a little bit earlier about how important my personal brand was for finding my own identity. I think I'm not alone in the fact that up until that point, I was kind of going through life not really knowing what my real purpose was. And that caused me a great deal of anxiety, actually. And once I started my channel, I really felt like that was my purpose and that was my focus. And I enjoyed my life so much more once I had that focus, and I really dug deep into finding out what my own passions were and what I really wanted to achieve in life. So as I talked about earlier, amazing for soul searching and soul finding. In terms of my career, it's had a hugely positive impact on the company I work for, because having an online presence and being well known in the legal world absolutely helps your business, not just in terms of its credibility and in terms of its image, but also in terms of creating work referrals. I've got over 40,000 followers now across various platforms. That still sounds insane when I say it out loud, but a number of those I've actually converted into work referral sources or clients. And businesses see that when they see a personal brand and they see someone with a lot of followers, they automatically think this is a whole potential client base, so it can make you really, really attractive to employers. By way of a few examples of people who are doing it really well within the legal profession, who've built really strong personal brands, there are a number of people speaking at this event who have built really strong personal brands, including Emma Lilly, Jasmine Brown, Justin Farrant. So make sure you check out all of their talks and also follow them on social media if you want some inspiration. There are also people like Eve Cornwell who have created an insanely successful personal brand, mainly on YouTube. You've also got the opposite end of the spectrum, people who are really well known for being experts in their field. Richard Susskind, for example, who's well known for writing the famous book Tomorrow's Lawyers, which I recommend that all of you read. You've also got The Secret Barrister, who's well known for his Twitter account and also his books. And Dana Dennis Smith, who is a very prominent female lawyer who is famous for founding the First 100 Years Project, which celebrated the first 100 years of women being able to practice law, which was only last year, if you can believe it. So there are a number of different types of people who've created their brands in a number of different ways for a number of different reasons. So there's a few people for you to look at to get some inspiration for how you might want to build yours. In the second part of this webinar, I want to talk about how to build your brand using social media. Social media is not the only way of building a personal brand. You can do it in a number of different ways. You could write a book, for example, you could be a TV personality or a sports personality, or achieve something amazing for society. But the key to building a successful personal brand is being able to reach and engage with an audience. And in the current climate, there's a very easy way to do that without being a celebrity, and it's called social media. The majority of you will probably have social media platforms already, which is a bonus because you already know a little bit about how to use social media. I will add the usual caveat when I'm talking about using social media for professional purposes that it can be a blessing and a curse. On the positive side, it is an amazing way of connecting with people and getting your voice heard and your name out there. However, it can also be detrimental if you end up posting things on there accidentally or that don't go the way that you expected. So always use social media with care and make sure you're not putting anything on there that you wouldn't want your professional community to read and your potential employer to read. It's a good idea to start off by using the platforms that you're already familiar with, but you may not want to use your existing handles for the reasons that I just mentioned. Just be mindful of what's on your existing profiles and whether you'd be happy for future employers to have a look at that. And if not, then perhaps create new handles under those existing platforms. I always recommend on social media having open platforms or business platforms to make sure that people can reach you more easily. It does tend to be much more difficult when you have private profiles which people can't freely access. So if you are concerned about your personal profiles, it's a good idea to start off by launching a business profile. When you're thinking about what platforms to use, it's fundamentally important that you enjoy what you're doing. So if there's certain platforms you're not familiar with or you don't like them, then don't use them, because it's going to be very difficult to get your personal brand off the ground if you don't fundamentally enjoy what you're doing. A point I just want to highlight is that a lot of people are put off from building a personal brand because they don't want to appear on camera, either in photos or on videos, and they're concerned that they would have to do that in order to build a personal brand or use a social media platform. That's absolutely not true. Look at The Secret Barrister, for example. He's got over 200,000 followers on Twitter. He's written a number of best-selling books, and no one even knows who he is. His face has never appeared on any of it. So don't be put off from starting a brand because you don't really like being on video and you don't like being on camera. There are absolutely ways around that, so you don't need to worry about that. Do what works for you, find the platform that works for you, and if you don't like being in front of a camera, then write instead, or do a podcast, for example. It's really important that you feel comfortable communicating in the medium that's right for you. The next thing you might want to think about when using social media is who your audience is and where they're likely to be, because different types of people tend to engage with different types of platform. For example, if you're trying to aim at the more junior end of the spectrum, teenagers and university students, then you're going to find them on YouTube, on Instagram and on TikTok. However, if you're trying to engage with an older audience of perhaps more senior professionals, then you don't tend to find them on those platforms so much. They tend to hang out more on LinkedIn and Twitter. So just be mindful of the type of people you're trying to connect with and where they're likely to be. If you're trying to connect with people who are in a similar demographic to you, then it's going to be fairly straightforward because they're likely to be on all the same platforms that you are. But it's just something to think about. Another thing to think about is how your message is best communicated to your audience to make sure it resonates with them. Because although you are very passionate about your brand and the causes behind why you're building your brand, your audience may not be at the start, and you need to find a way of engaging them to make sure they share your passion and to really get your passion across and make sure they continue to watch you and continue to come back to your personal brand. Now, this is a lot of trial and error. You're not going to get it right the first time. You're going to find that you put in a lot of effort to posts and content that gets no engagement, and then sometimes you put hardly any effort in and it gets loads of engagement. So don't be put off by that. It is trial and error, and sometimes things that you don't think are going to work, and sometimes things that you think are going to be great don't. It's just a case of trial and error and getting to know your audience and getting to know the platforms that you're using and how they work. One thing to highlight is that engagement is the most important thing. It's far more important than your number of followers. What's really important is that you have a group of people who identify with you and support you. It's unimportant how many followers you have if they're not engaging with your content and they're not fundamentally interested in your brand. So please do not go down the road of buying followers or using robots or using shady tactics like follow, unfollow to try and build up the number of followers that you have. Firstly, numbers of followers don't get you the respect that they used to because of all of these new shady tactics that people can use to get followers. What's really important is how many people are liking your content, commenting on your content and sharing it with others. That is the fundamentally important thing. Secondly, as future lawyers, it's so important that you create a relationship of trust and confidence with your audience, because your image on social media carries into your professional life as well. So if your audience can see that you have loads and loads of fake followers that you've potentially bought because your engagement isn't tallying up with your number of followers, for example, you've got 100,000 followers but you're only getting 100 likes on your post, it's fairly obvious that something's gone amiss there. Or if you're following and unfollowing people religiously, then it creates this feeling of distrust, and it makes people wonder whether perhaps you're doing that in your legal capacity as well. Are you using shady tactics in the court? Are you settling something in a way which isn't favourable and could ultimately impact the outcome of their case? All of this impacts on your overall professional image, so it's really important that you do things properly and you don't take shortcuts. It will take longer and it can be a very painful process if what you're after is followers and engagement, but I promise you it is so much better in the long term to achieve organic growth. I mentioned that there's a lot of trial and error involved in building a successful personal brand, but there's ways that you can help that process. Do poll questions, for example. Ask your audience what they want. Do your best to engage your audience and give your audience the type of content that they want to see. That will help you build your audience. Another way of doing that is to keep an eye on your analytics. If you've got business accounts for your social media profiles, then you can have a look at your engagement levels. You can see what people are liking and what engagement follows from that like, as a way of gauging how your audience is reacting to your content. Also, keep trying out and testing new things, because you never know when something's going to go down really well. So keep mixing up your content, although always keeping your message consistent. Use different styles of content, use different platforms, and see what gets good results. I can't give you a specific set of rules about what content to post on what platform, at what time, on what day, because it's different for everybody. My audience is different to yours, my message is different to yours. So you have to work out what works for you. However, I'm going to give you a few pointers of things that generally help across multiple platforms to increase your engagement. First thing is hashtagging. Make sure you are using as many hashtags as you can which are all relevant. Try to avoid using hashtags which have millions and millions of views attached to them, because your content is going to get lost all amongst those. Try and use as many hashtags as you can that are completely specific to your content to make sure that your content is being pushed to the right audience. Secondly, tagging people in posts, again, if it's relevant. Don't just tag hundreds of people in a post just because you want them to see it. It just annoys people and it makes people switch off from your comment. But if there are people which are linked to your post, for example, if you go to an event which is hosted by a certain person and it's sponsored by a certain person, or there are certain people that you saw speaking at the event, then absolutely tag them in, because that increases your engagement, it increases your chance of people liking that content and sharing that content with others. Another thing with the content that you're posting is always make sure it's good quality content. If you're posting photos or videos, make sure that you're clear and in focus and the light is good and the sound is good. If you're posting on Instagram, make sure that your head isn't cut off when you post the photo, or that you're out of focus, or that you're posting lots of different photos that are all completely different and there's no consistency to your feed. You want to make sure that your audience knows what they're getting each time, as that's what's going to encourage them not just to like one video but to actually follow you. Make sure you engage with other people on social media as well. This isn't a one-way street. It's really important that you like other people's content, you comment on it, and you share and follow other people as well. Social media is a community, so make sure you build a community, and it also encourages people to interact with you if you are also interacting with them. Off the back of that, social media platforms like it when you spend lots of time engaging on their platform, not just posting your own content but engaging with others. One thing you've got to be mindful of if you're using social media to market a personal brand is that you are very much in the hands of the platform to push your content to the right people. So you've got to play the game a little bit. I'd recommend watching a documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma if you haven't already. Firstly, because it's important for you from a security point of view to understand what happens in the world of social media and what can happen to your content that you produce. But also because it's important to understand how social media works and how you can use it potentially to your advantage if you're going to use those platforms to build your personal brand. That concludes my presentation on personal branding. I hope that you found that helpful. All of my social media handles are appearing on screen right now, and you can also find me on YouTube at Law and Broader. Thanks very much for watching and enjoy the rest of the conference.